Spanish, so please forgive me for that. I've learned that I really need to learn it though. So maybe next year when I come back, I will know a little bit more. So if you have any questions at the end, then I'll listen through the translation and do my best to answer your questions. I have a short presentation for you on our program at the Telecommunications Development Bureau on cybersecurity. If you were at my presentation yesterday on the national cybersecurity strategies, a few of the slides are similar, but mainly I'll focus a little bit more on all of the different work that we do at the BDT for the member states. So again, you know, for a crowd like an audience like you, I don't need to explain a lot the importance of cybersecurity. We're into information society at a very rapid pace. We're embracing the Internet of Things. More and more devices are coming into our lives to help us live a smarter life. They're affecting our health, our habits, our houses, and we're using the Internet for every aspect of our social interactions, our finances. ICTs are pervasive. These are great opportunities to make our lives better, live healthier, happier lives, but it's also increasing the risk that some malicious actors may abuse these systems, compromise their security, and start affecting our lives and livelihood. And for governments and nations, of course, there are many aspects of critical infrastructure that now can be affected by cyber attacks. So it's an increasingly worrisome problem, and statistics shows that the cyber threat is quite very much on the rise. Also, developing countries are embracing the advances in technologies. It allows them to catch up to the developed world and implement things that were out of their reach previously, but they may not have all the structures and organizations in place to deal with the cyber threat. So they're a little bit more at risk as they move forward into embracing ICTs. This means that we have to do more to build capacity on cybersecurity, particularly for developing nations. So our program is structured around that. Just to give you a few figures on the cyber threat landscape, there was a report published by one of our sector members, Symantec, which is, of course, a very large cybersecurity company that you surely know about. So they produced this report based on analysis of all the threats they've observed during 2015. They actually have a large number, over hundreds of people, looking at attacks, malware, analysis, incident handling. They have sensors deployed globally. So they really, really have a good handle on trying to assess the level of attacks that are going on in the networks and the internet at large. And they reported in this report, which you can obtain from our website or from their website as well, that there were over 400 million new pieces of malware in 2015 alone. That there were 9 mega breaches of at various companies where identities were revealed, and a mega breach is when at least 10 million identities are revealed. So we're talking about the names of people, their addresses and personal information, maybe their credit card numbers as well. One of the largest data breach was nearly 200 million identities revealed in a single breach. We've seen also an increase of nearly 60% in the number of spear phishing attacks in 2015. So spear phishing is when the attacker crafts, an email that's really targeted at you personally with some information about you, about your environment, and is trying to get you to click on a link or open a file that they attach that has malicious code. It's quite different from sending general mass emails, hoping somebody will click on the link, because targeted attacks, spear phishing, is far more efficient because you sort of feel like, okay, this is a legitimate email, it's talking to me, they know my name, and they may have obtained this information from the breaches. So now there's something that entices you to click in the link or open the attachment, and then they've infected your computer. We've also seen a big increase in crypto ransomware. This is a major threat now, and a lot of attacks have taken place also on the health sector, where they send malicious code that will encrypt the files on your computer or even in enterprise systems, and you can't run your business anymore until you've paid the fine. And there's actually a lot of exchanges right now on various mailing lists for CERT teams on what to do. Usually the traditional policy for these kinds of attacks is to not pay, because if you pay, you're encouraging that crime to continue. But you've seen some very, very interesting debates on the mailing list, because sometimes the attacker don't ask for that much money. And the impact of losing all your files is probably hundreds of times more damaging than paying the fine. So a lot of companies are now starting to pay these fines in order to recover their files. And that is perpetuating, helping this crime to keep going and spreading, and more people jumping on this lucrative activity now. We've also seen nearly 75% of the legitimate websites have unpatched vulnerability. You would think with all the information that we have and all of the standards for vulnerability reporting that this problem would eventually go away, but it seems not. It seems that system administrators are still challenged in keeping the system free of vulnerabilities. We've also found that attackers are developing new vulnerabilities that don't exist, with a 125% increase in the number of zero-day vulnerabilities that have been discovered over previous years. And you would think that maybe this is only affecting the large companies, like the Sony attacks that we've seen a few years ago. But no, in fact, now small and medium businesses are being targeted as well, because the attackers find ways of profiting from these small companies. And it's more difficult for the small and medium businesses to defend themselves. They just don't have the budgets that the large organizations have to properly defend themselves. So that's a little bit the cyber threat landscape from Symantec. From our perspective at the ITU, our mandate on cybersecurity comes from a few sources. In 2003 and 2005 was the World Summit on the Information Society, and the nations of the world decided to entrust the ITU to be the sole facilitator of what's called Action Line C5, which is to build confidence and security in the use of ICTs. So this gives us a role to engage at large worldwide with various organizations in helping achieve that goal. Then our Secretary General at the time came up with the Global Cybersecurity Agenda, which is sort of a framework for international cooperation in cybersecurity, and that we've been using ever since to sort of build our program upon. And that has led to the nations, the member states of the ITU, giving us a mandate on cybersecurity activities through various resolutions at the World Telecommunications Development Conference, which is our main conference for the Development Bureau, where our mandate is set by the member states, and the Plenipotentiary Conference, the PP as we call it, that happens every 4 years, where the ITU as a whole is given its mandate. So for us, these mandates have specific language. They're very long documents that are traditional style of writing, not necessarily exciting to read, but they tell us what we are to do, and in there you will find the different sort of objectives that the member states have set for us in cybersecurity. So based on this mandate, we have sort of developed a service catalog, which we've grouped into 7 areas. So we have first, activities related to engaging with the community and raising awareness. The flagship activity we have within that area is the Global Cybersecurity Index, the GCI. And I have a few slides on this a bit later. We organize global, regional, and national events as well. We support the nations in standing up these events, such as this one, the Cybersecurity Week in the center of the world. And we bring experts as well. We have an easy way of recruiting experts. So if you're organizing a national event and you want some international speakers, we have a very wide network of people we know can discuss about different topics, ranging from data privacy to legislation to critical infrastructure protection. And if you reach out to us, we can easily find an expert for your conference. And if we have funds, we can sometimes support it financially and fly the experts into your conference and help you get a worldwide reach of experts within your events. And we also disseminate some publications by vendors, such as the Symantec Threat Report. We have one as well from Trend Micro. So we pass this information on to the authorities. We also have an activity related to the national cybersecurity strategies. This is the one I spoke about yesterday. So in there, we help countries make an assessment of their level of national cybersecurity. And for this, at the moment, we're using a lot the Oxford University's cybersecurity capability maturity model, which is something they've developed over the past few years and have applied to a number of countries. It's about a 3-day event, so they come here. We bring stakeholders from all departments, agencies, and ministries, and then we set up a series of workshops, inform them and ask them questions, and then we gather information and we sort of compile it against a maturity model in cybersecurity. And at the end of that, we produce a report, and that tells you a little bit where you stand in terms of cybersecurity at the national level. So this assessment is what we try to do first, because it gives us a sense of how the various aspects of cybersecurity at the nation are developed, and where is the most assistance needed. And we also provide, and this was the whole focus of the presentation yesterday, support to develop a national cybersecurity strategy. So, for countries that have them, we can assist in refining them, publishing the next revision of it, or we can help you write the first one. I have a few slides on that a bit later. Maybe one of the biggest program we have is our computer incident response team program, where we assist the countries in standing up a national CERT. We start with a design, so we go into the country, we interview key stakeholders, and then we make a recommendation for where the national CERT should be positioned within the government structure, how long it's going to take to create, what services you want to offer, how many people you're going to need, and then we sort of give you this design, which you can then use by yourself to implement your CERT, or you can call on our follow-on service, which is the actual implementation. We used to do the implementations with Impact, which is a company out of Malaysia, but we are repatriating this program and doing this by ourselves now. And in that case, if you use this service, we would fully implement the national CERT in your country. And if you have one, whether we've built it or not, we can assist you in improving your CERT by adding new services and implementing, for example, forensics or malware reverse engineering capabilities. I have a few more slides on some of these aspects a bit later. We also provide in-country technical assistance. So this is ad hoc assistance. It's what you need, whether it's for vulnerability assessments, risk management. If you have a need for some cybersecurity support, you can come to us, and either we will provide it ourselves or we will reach out to experts that can assist you and have the right skills. Well, the cyber drills you know very well, because we're going to have one starting on tomorrow and Thursday, Friday. Those are the regional ones. We've done 15 of those so far, and they bring together all of the CERT teams to work on a scenario to exercise their skills and knowledge and learn new tricks and get to know each other. But we're also now developing the concept or the service of a national drill, which is basically dedicated to one nation and is focused at the higher level of management, the interaction between the different government departments. So we simulate a national level crisis and then help you go through the different functions and reactions and response that the nation should have to this drill. And then you learn more about the coordination, what works, what doesn't work, and you can make sure that you're more ready for a real event. We're also developing services related to information sharing. So we will be standing up some portals that are regional and international, where we can share best practices. And then we are also looking at providing guidance on information sharing tools and techniques. There's a lot of development in that field if you track it a little bit, with new standards, new tools, new platform for cyber threat intelligence sharing. And we will be providing some information on those and some recommendations for standards as well on what to use to implement information sharing. And finally, we have some human capacity building activities. We can assist a country in developing curricula for training programs or providing bespoke training to individuals in the country. Generally speaking, the services are offered in this way. It doesn't have to be this way, but this is what we try to recommend. So we would start by doing the assessment at the national level to figure out where you stand in the country. Then if you don't have a national cybersecurity strategy and you really want to move forward at that level, that's the best thing to put in place, because this will set the vision for where you want to go. And if you have that in place, you have more chance of improving cybersecurity in your country in the most efficient way. Then we would proceed with implementing a national CERT if it doesn't exist. Once the CSIRT is in place, we would engage it into regional cyber drills in the region, so as to exercise, the skills they've learned and get to know the other CSIRTs in the region. And then we would provide some support on information sharing platforms and tools that they can use. And eventually, once the CSIRT team has got some experience, we would recommend a national cyber drill where we would really exercise the national search role within the government and coordination with all of the different ministries. And throughout all of these services, we can, of course, organize events, disseminate publications, and provide training. That's just done at as needed basis. So a brief few slides on the Global Cybersecurity Index. We developed this index in 2014. That's the year it was first published. It measures the commitment of countries to cybersecurity, and it's organized along the 5 pillars of the global cybersecurity agenda I mentioned earlier, which are the legal measures, the technical measures, the organizational measures, capacity building, and cooperation. We're hoping that this effort will help the countries identify areas of improvement because we provide a ranking for each. It's going to motivate them to take action to raise their ranking in the world. It's going to help harmonize practices by outlining how different countries do different things, and it's going to foster a global culture of cybersecurity. The results for 2014 are on our website. You can see for your own countries your scores. And we changed the questionnaire quite a bit for 2016. We improved it, went to greater depth, and we also provided an online questionnaire, so it was a little bit easier to answer and to do the analysis. In 2014, we had 105 responses, but in 2016, we're now up to 134, which is pretty significant if you count the number of countries, 193 for the ITU. That's a lot of responses, and to our knowledge, there's no other index or measurement of cybersecurity that has such a global reach. So there's more detail on our website. We made this heat map of the results. So I guess the dark blue shows the countries that scored the highest, and the red shows the countries that scored the lowest. It corresponds a little bit to what you would expect. It aligns with the nature of development in the countries as well. Of course, it's something you have to take with a grain of salt, as they say, because if you don't rely a lot on ICTs for your economy, it's not as important to be as prepared if you want for cybersecurity because you're less vulnerable to attack. So you have to read the details and see the results. But our intent is to give a general picture and then give sort of an encouragement for nations to sort of address some of the cybersecurity and at least make a commitment to it at the national level by taking some actions in improving cybersecurity. We are now doing this in partnership with a number of different organizations. You see their names up here. I won't read them all, but we use these organizations to assist us in the data analysis, in the collection of information. We'll use them also to write reports and to get their expertise. So for example, for the ranking, because we look at legal measures, we look at technical measures, how do you compare these? They're like apples and oranges. So is it more important to have legal measure, or is it more important to have organizational structure or technical measures or cooperation? So to do that, we sent out the sort of all of the questions that we had to 20 or so experts, and we've asked them to individually give a weight to each of the question. And then we got all the results back and we did an average. And this average is what we use as a weight to calculate the index, and then we rank the countries. So it's not just our thoughts about how these things are important, but we've actually engaged with subject matter experts from the community at large to help us come up with the algorithm. In terms of the results, well, it's not the results, but the status of the survey this year for the index. As I said, 134 surveys were submitted by the nations. We believe we can hope to have perhaps 21 more because at least they identified the focal point and they were given access to the website. So maybe we'll reach 140 responses. But in the America region, we had 23 answers. There's 5 surveys that are being filled, we hope, in the next few weeks. And 7 countries haven't responded. And I list the countries there. So if you can see your country and you think that you should answer this and you can do something about it, you can reach out to me and I'll put you in contact with my team and we can find out who in your country is the best person to answer the survey and participate in this. For those countries that do not provide an answer, we will use the information available on the internet to answer all the questions on your behalf. And then we will send these results to your authorities and ask them to validate them, and then we'll publish the results at the end. And I understand some countries don't want to participate. I'm Canadian and my country is not answered, and no matter who I call in Canada and I try to convince to participate, they're not going to participate. So, you know, it may be a national decision not to take part in the index, which is fine. But if it's just a matter of not having the right people in touch, then please let us know if you can do something about it and help us complete the survey for all of the member states. As part of the work we do for the GCI, we collect a lot of information because we're trying to gather the evidence, you know, to support the scoring that we're going to do. So we prepare a document that we call a cyber wellness profile for each country. I've shown the one for Ecuador here, but you can find on our website these wellness profile for every one of your countries. And they're organized along the pillars of the GCA. So if you take a look at this document, you should see what information we've found or you've provided to us regarding all of these pillars. And if it's incorrect, they can be fixed at any time. Just let us know. But it's a good summary, if you want, of the state of cybersecurity in a country. So now we move on to our National Cybersecurity Strategy Guide. We've noticed that 72 out of the 193 member states of the ITU have published publicly a national cybersecurity strategy. You see sort of the map of those countries down there. They're all on our website. So if you want to sort of study these, you can access them from our website. And we're writing a new guide to help countries write their own strategies. And it's going to replace the previous guide that we had. And this is a joint effort. We're actually not doing this just alone by ourselves, but with 15 other, well, a group of 15 organizations, including us. And you can see who those organizations are here. And basically, they were selected because these organizations have published on this subject. They've written advice or written a guide of their own on cybersecurity strategies. And our guide is intended to actually just reference this text, but organize it in a structured way, as I was saying yesterday. If you look at all this document, there's probably 1,000 pages to read in there. And if you're approaching this, you know, as a new country who wants to write a national cybersecurity strategy, it's quite daunting task to master all of this and try to figure out what you need to do. Our reference guide is going to structure the thinking process about the strategy and point to those publications. You don't have to read them all at first. You read our guide, which we expect is going to be 30 or 40 pages, and it will structure the thinking process, and then you can read for the things that matter to you. You can follow the references in the link and read the actual recommendations, and there's texts that are produced by these organizations and that are more in depth. So that's for the national cybersecurity strategies. In terms of national CSIRTs, well, you know, they are the first line of defense for cyber attacks. They're responsible for coordinating the incident response at the national level, disseminating information about upcoming trends and alerts, possible attacks, facilitating the communications among stakeholders, developing strategies on how to handle incidents, and sort of providing best advice in general in incident handling. And also being sort of perhaps in your nation the #1 go-to point for international cooperation. I was 2 weeks ago in Seoul at the annual conference of the Forum for Incident Response and Security Team. There were 670 people attending, and all of the national CSIRTs were there, or at least those who could come. And they even have, so they have a lot of information sessions, sharing information about the recent development for incident handling. And they even have sort of a meeting of national CSIRTs, only the official national CSIRTs on a Saturday. So that those kinds of associations are essential. If you're not part of it, I would encourage you to join. The amount of information that you get is substantial. The support you get from the community is quite impressive. And so being a member of FIRST is really a key thing that every CERT should pursue. We found in the world that there were 102 national CERTs, and so we have this program to help countries come up with a national CERT. Starts with an assessment, of course, as I've said before, and then the implementation, possibly enhancement, and eventually the cyber drills. Actually, in the past 5 or so years, we've conducted assessments, readiness assessments for national CERTs in 67 countries. That's quite a lot, and this was mostly done using the Impact team that is out of Malaysia. And we've completed 11 implementations of national CERTs. A lot of them were in Africa. And then we have 4 more that are in progress: Barbados, Burundi, Gambia, and Lebanon. Barbados actually pretty much finished now, so they should be operational. We're just providing sort of the after implementation support. And we've done over 15 regional cyber drills that have involved over 115 countries. When we build a national CERT, we follow quite a structured approach. We don't invent our own solution. We're really engaged with the community at large to come up with the best practices, the existing material, the business processes, the common services, and the open source software that's available, and bring that together as a package solution for each nation as we build it. And the 2 key sources at the moment of information and best practices are the first CSIRT services framework. So the FIRST has been developing this service framework, and I have a few slides on that later on, to sort of organize the thinking about what CERTs do. And the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise, which was launched by the Dutch in the midst of the global conference on cyberspace that took place in April of last year in The Hague. And the GFC is a forum to bring together people that are involved, or organizations and member states that are involved in cybersecurity or cyber capacity building. And in there, we are co-organizers or co-initiator of an initiative on CSIRT maturity, along with the Netherlands, Microsoft, and the OAS. And we're looking at different maturity models and how to improve maturity in CSIRTs and the processes related to that. So our approach is very structured. We come to the nations with a lot of different tools, templates, and documentation to make this a streamlined process. And we recognize as well that it's not a one solution that fits for everyone. It needs to be adapted. Every nation is different. So we're very careful as part of the process to sort of understand the specific conditions or circumstances in a country and adapt the solution to the specific requirements in the nation. I've said this before, again, this national CERT should be part of the national cybersecurity strategy if it exists. And very important also to not simply look at it as a little box, if you want, that we deliver with a set of services. You need to connect it. And this is perhaps the most important thing. You need to connect it with the stakeholders in the national level, but also at the regional and international level. And that takes, quite an effort. And it's a part of growing up for the CERT to sort of show that it exists, that it's doing these functions, that it engages with all the stakeholders at the national level, regional and international level as well. So from our perspective, and there are a lot of discussion within the FIRST community, as well as the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise, on what is a national CERT, how do you define that? There is no answer at the moment for this. But what we say is that for us, it's the primary coordination authority at the national level. So if something big is going to happen within your country, the expectation is that your national CERT will be the one that is going to be making sure everyone is reacting in a coordinated fashion. So that's sort of the key factor. And that requires the national CERT to be recognized as that authority by all the stakeholders. And in some countries, this can be difficult because of different mandates that are given to different organizations for related aspects of cybersecurity, and sort of difficulties in making sure we understand, okay, you're responsible for this, but I'm responsible for that. and making sure there's an harmonized and coherent approach to incident handling. So as part of the work we do, we try to make sure that that's a clear definition. But again, for us, the national CSIRT is the nation's coordination authority for major incident. I want to say a few words on the CSIRT services framework that is coming out of FIRST, and we're contributing to this effort. Again, the idea is to structure all of the services of a CSIRT team into very precise definitions and go into depth on how those services are implemented and delivered in order to harmonize the practice around the globe, if I can say, and also to allow FIRST to develop education and training material that can then be made available to trainers worldwide and ensure that, you know, people, when we speak about incident handling, incident coordination, vulnerability analysis, and all these key words, we know exactly what we're talking about. And people have expectations engaging somebody else in a different CSIRT about what they're going to do with any information that they exchange. So there are some principles that we're sort of pushing for this services framework. We think it needs to be simple, that captures the key elements of the activities the CSIRTs do to get some consensus and get this document published and accepted by the community. It should be comprehensive, so it should list all services that any kind of CSIRT should want to provide. Even if some types of CSIRT won't provide this service, it doesn't matter. It's not, you know, a must mandatory set of services that you have to provide, but rather a list of the things you can pick and choose as a menu if you want. We don't want to be something that's theoretical. We want to be pragmatic. So let's just get a good definition out there and let's publish it and not worry about too much, you know, making it too perfect. And one of the key things is to be very consistent in the language so that all of the training material that comes with it is harmonized and is reusable across the globe as we provide support to different member states on the implementation of CSIRTs from very different regions of the world. So it's got a structured, it's a hierarchical model. We've grouped services into service areas, then you have individual services, and within each services there are different functions that you would perform to deliver that service, and within each function you would have tasks that you have to do, and for each task you'd have actions. And so you're going into a greater level of detail. Of course, the key is to agree on the service areas and the services. That's the most important thing. And then with time, we will build up the level of detail in the lower part of the model and then attach the training material for those tasks and actions. And also you can point to different tool sets. So what tools can be used for this action, commercial tools, open source tools, and all that will structure, if you want, all of the thinking around CSIRTs. And really the service areas and the services, they identify what's being done, and the function, tasks, and actions, they identify how that is being done. So services, well, it's the traditional definition of a service. It's the value you bring to your customers, you know, when they request a service from you. It's something that the customer says, I want this, but they don't need to know how you're going to deliver that, but they know very well what they're going to get. In terms of the context of the CSIRTs, for us, it's the constituency of your CSIRT that is receiving the service. So that's pretty simple. A function is an activity or a set of activities that you do to implement, to deliver the service. And tasks is a clearly defined piece of work that has several actions that is, you know, could be something that's done in a short amount of time that will actually, you know, implement the function, and then the action is a specific step to perform the task. So it's sort of the breakdown model that I just described. And if we put this graphically, this is sort of the representation. So on the left, you have service areas, and within each service area, you're going to have a number of services. For each service, you have a number of functions that you would do to deliver that service. Maybe not necessarily do all the functions all the time, but at least do part of them. And then within each functions, you have a number of tasks to do, and within each task, you have a number of actions. You know, we're working with this model. This has been proposed as a first version that's been released to the community. We're now writing version 2 very quickly. How well this will work, this is a growing piece of work that may evolve a little bit, but that's the structure that we're looking at the moment. So I've brought a slide that shows all of the services as they are currently in the framework. You're not meant to read that, so I know the fonts are small. I'll just highlight the service areas on the left-hand side as you go down the first column. So one service area is incident management, another is analysis, then you have information assurance, situational awareness, outreach and communications, capability building, and research and development. Even at this moment, this is version 1. As we speak, we're in discussions to merge the research and development into capacity building, rename that capability development, and a few other changes. So I don't want to spend too much time because this is being refined as we speak. Within the next few months, a new version of this will be published. And then as you go down, let's pick one service area, the incident management. The services would be coordination, analysis of incidents, mitigation, and recovery of incidents. So that's how the structure is going to eventually look like. So that's the CSIRT services framework being developed by the FIRST community with inputs from various organizations worldwide. And it's really going to help you structure your thinking about your CSIRTs, whether they're national, organizational, sectorial, and also to get access to training material for specific activities within the CSIRT. Very quickly now, I wanted to just highlight the demand that we have for implementations of CSIRT. So in Africa region, we have 16 countries that have asked us to help them implement their national CSIRTs. In the Americas, we have 8 that are listed here, a couple in the Arab region and one in Europe. So that those are countries that have approached us and asked for assistance, sometimes at different level of commitment. Sometimes it's just a good discussion and then they're looking into it. In other cases, we've already received the funds and we need to start the implementation. So anything in between those two extremes is what we're talking about here. And then for CSIRT enhancement, so improving existing CSIRTs, we have 2 on the go. I think with time, this will improve as well. And I think the CSIRT services framework and the maturity toolkit from the GFC will really help CSIRT see, okay, I've got these services and these are the levels of maturity, and I'm really here and I want to go over there to a higher level of maturity, then they're going to demand, you know, more services for enhancing their capabilities. And I think that's pretty much the last bit of the presentation. I wanted to go over our program for the region. So within the way we organize our activities within the ITU, as I said, we have the World Telecommunications Development Conference where the BDT, the Telecommunications Development Bureau, receives its mandate. There are a number of different tools and structures and frameworks in there, but one of them is the regional initiatives. So the countries from the regions decide on the kind of assistance that a region is going to receive for the next 4-year period. And there is one on building confidence and security in the use of ICTs. So for the Americas region and the 2015 to 2017 period, it's regional initiative number 5, and it's described over here. It has objectives and the expected results in terms of cybersecurity are enhanced coordination and sustained national and regional approaches to cybersecurity and support for institutional and organizational mechanisms at the national and regional level for the effective implementation of cybersecurity strategies. And what that does is the member states, the countries in the region are essentially telling the BDT, we want in the regions this kind of support. And then from the funds that we receive from the member states, we assign a certain amount of money to the regional initiative, which is then managed by the regional office to deliver services to you. And this is where Pablo Palacios comes into play. He's the focal point for cybersecurity for the BDT in the region. He's the one looking after the regional initiative and planning the projects every year in order to achieve the objectives that are made in this regional initiative. And this gives a little bit of funding for us to assist you in cybersecurity and in some cases a few other things as well. And of course, there are other regional initiatives within the mandate of the BDT, but I'm only discussing those related to cybersecurity. So here we have a list of some of the activities in the Americas region so that you're aware of what the BDT is doing. So we've got the implementation of the national CERT in Barbados. We're in discussions for implementing a national CERT with Grenada, one in Peru, which would be an academic CERT for the INICTEL uni, but also one national CERT for Guatemala and Honduras. We have completed last year the implementation of national certs in Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, we're here with the 4th Regional Cyber Drills. Last year we had one in Colombia, and we don't know yet next year where it's going to be. So if your country is interested in hosting it, let us know. And that's all the activities that are funded by the budgets of the regional office and the regional initiatives I just mentioned. A quick slide on the past regional cyber drills. They started in a region in 2013 in Uruguay. Then in 2014, we went to Peru. Last year, we were in Colombia. So once again, if you're interested in hosting it next year, let us know. Finally, we also have different publications. We hire experts to write on various topics related to cybersecurity. So if you go to our website, you're going to find a few books. Some of them are pretty big. Some of them are small publications on various topics related to cybersecurity. So I invite you to take a look at what we have to offer over there. And that concludes my presentation. It's a brief overview of the activities of the BDT. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you. Good, it's the coffee break, I think. So people want some coffee.
Gracias. Queremos indicarles que a partir de las 16 horas se va a atender el refrigerio en la terraza del 4º piso. Gracias.